Leon Judd, how you doing, my friend? Thanks for coming out.
Doing fine. Happy to be here.
Really appreciate it. Welcome to Easy Awakenings. This is podcast number something.
23, I think. 23.
23. Yeah, we've done other videos, but we number the podcast in the number system. So.
24 is my lucky number. This is
nice.
good.
Good. Yeah. Right before it. Yeah. So this guy is the president of NAMI Oakland County.
Metro.
Okay.
Oakland, Wayne, and Macomb.
Okay. All right. So it's called NAMI Metro.
NAMI Metro, Oakland, Wayne, and Macomb counties. Yes.
Okay. Awesome. So what for people out there that don't know who or what NAMI is, can you fill us in a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, NAMI is a national organization. It stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Mm-hmm. They're headquartered in Virginia. Every state has a chapter. In Michigan, it's in Lansing. And then underneath each of those state organizations, there are affiliates. These are the grassroots people. Mm-hmm. We have about 14 in the state of Michigan. We represent NAMI Metro, which is Oakland, Wayne, and Macomb counties. And all of them pretty much do the same thing. No matter what state you're in, all the NAMIs provide education, support, and advocacy for family members as well as individuals. We are an all-volunteer 501c3 organization, so everything that we offer is free by way of programming. Mm-hmm. So we don't want to discourage anyone from getting the right education or the support that they need. And there's so many people out there that do. Mm-hmm. So if you go from one NAMI affiliate to another state, you should find things are going to be fairly similar. It's all people that are family members to family members, individuals who are in recovery with individuals who are in recovery. Mm-hmm. So it's a very relaxed atmosphere for people that go in and get education and support.
Oh, that's good. I guess you kind of want it to be relaxed in that sort of field. You don't want like tight on edge.
Yeah, it's hard not to be tight, however.
Oh, okay. There's a good story behind that. Let's hear a little bit of it. Okay. All right. Yeah. So I mean, that's sort of the log line of what NAMI is. Let's hear about. I guess what would you say you do on a monthly basis? Like, what do you usually encounter? What do you tackle?
So our affiliate, like I said, is made up of all volunteers. So it's either family members who have a loved one with a mental illness, or individuals who are in recovery themselves, who are a part of our all volunteer activities. So the things that we do is we have 3 helplines, for example, where people can call in on a regular basis, and we help advocate by getting them connected with the right kind of resources that they may be looking for, helping them understand what kind of educational programs are available, what kind of support groups are out there and available for them, and also what kind of services are available in the community. So, we work with Oakland County Community Health Network, we'll work with Wayne County Mental Health Association, and the same with Macomb County. Okay. So a lot of people are just... Unfortunately, when a lot of family members who are in distress because they've got a crisis going on, they usually can't get a hold of somebody live.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So when they call us, they get an answer right away, and a lot of times they just need to talk for a while and find out where it is that they might go for the next step. Okay. Biggest chore is helping family members understand that they're not alone, because this is a very lonely illness that affects the family.
Sure.
And so if we can get them into a support group, it helps them understand that, and it gives them the support that they need in order to be able to help their loved one who may be dealing with a pretty serious mental health issue.
Do you ever deal with that stuff personally? Like, do customers ever reach out to you? Do you handle any of that stuff?
Every day. People reach out to me. My name is out there pretty much because a lot of the family, we have a 10-week family education program that's called Families in Action. And so we meet a lot of people. We have put 1,500 family members through our family education program. And so those people remember us, and I'm one of the teachers of that program. And so they will constantly call back, when something happens or they're looking for maybe some additional information or wanting to know what's new. they'll call us, or they may have a question about something with regards to some of the services that they may be getting or not getting. They may be looking for information about Social Security disability for their loved one. We can help direct them into places to go. Sometimes they're looking for a lawyer.
Oh, okay.
Maybe a criminal lawyer, or someone that they could go to, and finding one who has a connection or an understanding with people with mental illness is really, really important.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess that's sort of that you have a connection yourself to the subject and,
yes.
and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my story is I have a son who we dropped off at the age of 17 to University of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
He was in engineering physics, honors engineering school on an academic scholarship. And in his sophomore year, he had a complete psychotic break. He was probably the perfect child up until this all happened. We had no idea that something was going to happen like this.
Yeah.
And so we went up and picked him up, and that was my introduction to mental illness some years ago. So he's 45 now, but about the first 5 years were very, very difficult years in terms of hospitalizations, suicide attempts, things like that are not untypical for people who are in this field of mental illness, trying to struggle to figure out where it is to get information and how to go. The good news is, however, is that after we finally got him on the right medications and treatment plan, which took a little over 5 years, he went back and he did get his undergraduate degree. He went back and got his master's degree,
Nice.
and he's worked in automotive and aerospace since. So, there is treatment. There's no cure, but there is treatments today that can be very helpful.
Yeah, it's interesting to even, I guess there can't really be a cure for this kind of thing, right? Like it would be a treatment because it's I mean, everyone can potentially reach a level of that breaking point if circumstances are bad enough, if the mind's in the I wouldn't say right spot, but
there is a lot of research that goes on by a lot of different organizations that if you've ever seen Ride the Tiger on YouTube, it's an excellent piece on research into bipolar disorder by the Heinz Prechter Foundation out of the University of Michigan. And it's amazing to see what they're trying to do, but they also explain the difficulty of it because the mind is such a complicated thing. That it's hard to isolate a gene or isolate things that they thought they were going to be able to do at the beginning. I think they have found that that's not going to happen.
Yeah, and there's so much new research coming out every day. Like I was just reading an article by this psychiatrist, I wish I could remember her name, but she was talking about diet in terms of how diet is related to mental illness. And she was talking about the keto diet specifically, about how it has helped so many of her patients. So the area is so broad, right, in terms of treatment, because when you go into a doctor's office, a psychiatrist's office, or a therapist's office, they're just basing it on your symptoms. And symptoms, it's not really causation. They're basing it on your symptoms, so your symptoms get treated. But the causes are so many, they're endless. Right. Because everybody's so unique.
Yeah, you could have someone that's got, legitimate, like, wires in their brain that are just not connected properly, or there's someone that just is pushed to their limits. It's just hard to tell.
It could be their circumstances, it could be their temperament, it could be their personalities. It could be just so many things, like all the things that can cause emotional pain. Right. And maybe it's just resiliency, they just are not resilient. So in terms of the causality, I think that's what is a problem in mental health, because we can't really know for sure.
The scientists are still struggling to figure out why. They do know that it's partly genetic and it's partly environmental. And what we do know is we know a lot of the triggers that cause someone to go into it. Some scientists believe that everyone has a predisposition to a mental illness. What they don't understand is why it affects one person and not the other, except the triggers. In the 18 to 24-year-old group, which where my son was at, is the largest group of people that actually show and exhibit mental illness. And if you stop and think about college students, which is the bigger group, it's like the perfect storm. So first time away from home, no supervision, they're not eating right, they're not exercising probably the same way, study habits are entirely different than they were when they were in school. And I would imagine that some of those college students may be smoking and joking and partying. Hard to believe. So,
oh no.
So any one of those things is enough to trigger in some people. When you put them all together, it's like the perfect storm.
No, it's interesting. I've got a few cases. One of my brothers in high school. We don't know exactly how far it went, but it was an attempted suicide, and there was a big thing. Everyone had to get up in the middle of the night to make sure that he was okay, and there was an issue of like swallowing pills and these kinds of things. So it's that thing, and then a friend of mine too, same sort of thing. He was threatening to commit suicide, and sometimes you don't know if are they really doing it for is it just for attention? Are they really gonna do it? I mean, how do you handle that? Because there are plenty of cases where you're like, you're just looking for attention, you're just saying it, but then you don't want to treat it as if they're just saying it, because what if they do actually do it? How do you handle that? How do you go about?
Suicide is interesting, and a lot of it is depression. And what people have a hard time understanding if you don't experience it, and I've not experienced it, so I don't know exactly, but what I'm told by many, many people is the pain is so real and is so deep that they don't want to end their life. They just want to end the pain that they're going through. I lost two nephews, both of them. One had bipolar disorder, was in the hospital, got released from the hospital, was in there about 7 days, and he took his life by suicide that day after he was released. Another one was much later, which was his brother, and the same thing. These are not uncommon stories. I mean, these are... But all of them deal with the same thing. It's the pain that they're going through, that they're trying to end. They don't want to end their lives. It's just the pain.
So I mean, how do you, and someone in that position, and I'm sure this question has been asked a billion times, right? Someone in that position, you're an outsider. You're seeing them going through this. They're talking about it. You don't know what stage they're at, where they're going to kind of, take it to. You can get it. That's fine. That's fine. We have phone disruptions all the time. That's all right.
I thought I had turned it off.
No, it's okay. It's all right. That's why I give this stand so you can ring back. But no. So you see people going through this. What's the first step? I remember I had a friend, and this was maybe a decade ago. She called me up. And she was talking to me about. She was letting me know. She's like, I had no one else to talk to, but I trust you, Marquise. Let me just chit chat with you. And I said, all right. So we went and talked to 6 a.m. until I felt comfortable that she was in a good spot. But I'm like, I don't know what to do other than just to communicate and make you feel more human.
A lot of it is, we talk to middle schoolers and high schoolers, and part of it is talking about mental health, what it is and how to maintain mental health. Mental illness, what are some of the signs and symptoms of that. And then we also talk about suicide prevention. And sometimes it's just being a friend and being there to listen to somebody who may be going something rather traumatic. But there's a lot of sources available anymore. There's chat lines available through community mental health services 24/7. Suicide prevention hotlines that are available. These are people that have been trained to be able to help people, and the best is to try and get them to there. But the other is, if you got somebody who is suicidal, you don't want to leave them alone. You want to stay there with them, and sometimes all they need to do is talk through it, and you don't even need to say anything. Just being there is really medication in itself.
Just that connection. The other thing is when somebody is even contemplating suicide, one of the things that I like to think about is it's like that is their solution to their pain. And that's one of the things, is not to take that solution away and make them feel even worse by saying, well, you shouldn't commit suicide. Because I think that really, brings that guilt and shame even deeper. They're already feeling really bad about themselves. I think to still keep that as a possibility for them, not to shame them about it,
Sure.
but to also show them that there is another way for them to help to mitigate this pain.
Right.
Because a lot of times, when, let's say if a person is in that much pain and you tell them, oh, no, don't commit suicide.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what, let's just put this off to the side.
Yeah.
You always have that option.
Right.
And that is the unknown. You don't know what's really going to happen. You think it's going to stop the pain, but how do we really know, right? So get them just questioning it, but also keeping that on the table for them in case they want to do it. But then at the other, at the other part of the whole picture you help them to see other possibilities, help them to see what they really care about.
Sure.
And use that to bring them out of it, so they're not looking for they're not just looking at just their pain.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting you say that. So the first thing I kind of think about when you talk about that is it's almost an issue of control in their life. Maybe they're feeling like they don't have any control in their life. So when you say, like, don't take that away, I think initially in society we're like, well, no, I can't let my son, or whoever go through with this.
Yeah.
But if you do that, I could see how that might make someone worse, because their whole thing is, I don't have control over my life.
Right.
Exactly.
And so that's my way of taking control. So if you remove that, that might prompt them. That's an interesting way of looking at that.
Psychiatrist once told me something that stayed with me, and that was, and it was about suicide. He says, you need to understand, he says, that mental illness is a serious illness.
Yeah.
Diabetes is a serious illness.
Sure.
Cancer is a serious illness.
Sure.
People die from cancer. People die from diabetes.
Yeah.
People die from mental illness.
Yeah.
And it kind of put things in perspective. It sort of normalized a little bit about the fact that, this is a serious illness and people do die from it. You don't want them to,
Sure.
but it is something that happens.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to talk about it if somebody is thinking about it.
Yeah.
That's one of the big fallacies where people think, well, if I talk about it, that's going to put it in their mind and then they'll do it.
Exactly.
Absolutely, the opposite is true.
It's so important to really even honor the fact that they have the option to do that, and you're not going to judge them for it. Just don't keep putting more judgment on top of it. They're already feeling really judged.
Right. We're thinking we're helping the situation.
Give them that sense of control and empowerment.
Yeah. That's huge.
Because at the end of the day, if they're going to do it, they're going to do it. I don't care how many hotlines there are available. I don't know. It doesn't even matter. If they're going to do it, they're going to find a way to do it, right?
Yeah.
We can't really totally stop somebody. We can maybe mitigate the chances, maybe, do something to protect them for a short amount of time.
Right.
But, yeah.
It's interesting. I think that's, I keep thinking it's mine. We must have the same phone.
Yeah.
Mine's off, so it's got to be
so
yours.
It might be mine. We should shut that on silence. It's interesting because that threw me off. What were we saying? Recap.
You're going to ask me to remember what I just said. I can't even remember what I had for
Record the video.
Record the video. I say things, and then people will say, what did you just say? I'm like, oh, no.
Instant
replay.
Yeah,
we got to get that going on here.
To give people back control.
In
that's
their
right.
Life.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting because, I think even control gets sort of a bad rep in our lives. People think of control, they think of Hitler. You know what I'm saying? They think of like the worst.
Maybe empowerment is a better word.
Let's change control. Let's change the stigma around control, because it's an important thing in our lives to feel that sense of empowerment or control, and at least within our circumstances, to have some influence at least in what happens during the course of our lives. And it's funny to think, I tend to relate that to, we've got, I was just looking at an article, we had like 4 attempts at mass shootings, again, after these successful massive shootings that we've had. I kind of relate it to the same thing. I think control, at least on some significant part, plays into these people that get this urge to just want to pick up a gun and just unleash hell amongst folks.
I'd like to comment on something that happens, and it just irks me to no end, I guess.
Sure.
And that is that the statistics are very clear. And that is, people who have a mental illness are more likely to be a victim of violence than to be a perpetrator of violence.
Okay.
But if you listen to the media, they do nothing to help educate the people properly about what it is. Because if you bleed, you read, you know? And so they try and create this, which just expands it harder and harder, creating stigma. And typically, if you find somebody who does have a mental illness that's involved in one of these horrific things, you'll typically find out they're not being treated. They're untreated. And so, but the problem is the picture that's painted by the media is that everyone is like this.
Sure.
That's a really good point.
And it's horrible.
It makes it even worse. It makes the stigma much worse. For
That's
those
true.
that do have mental illness, because everybody thinks, oh, you're going to do it next.
Right.
I'm not even sure all of the people that go out and commit these mass shootings have mental illness.
Oh no, they don't. I mean, it's clear that they don't. But the first thing that you hear under any of them is always this comment that, oh, well, they must have had a mental illness.
I think it's an easier, and I'm sure a few of them at the very least have had a
no
mental,
question. And like I say, those are typically untreated people.
Exactly.
Right.
So,
Or they're under the wrong treatment.
Or they're under the wrong treatment. The good news is even though there is no cure, the treatments today are so much better than they were 20 years ago. And, they're getting medications now that don't have quite the same side effects as they had 20 years ago. And there's no reason people didn't want to take medication, because the side effects in many cases were worse than the illness. So today I think they're doing a better job of trying to come up with medications that are going to be less side effects to the people. And as a result, they're more willing to take the medication.
Could you say that people that are struggling with mental illness are more likely, they're more likely to hurt themselves rather than hurt somebody else in a physical or violent way? Are there statistics on that?
I'm sure there are statistics. I don't know what those are, but like I say, they're typically victims by other people, not necessarily themselves or doing something to themselves or others.
You kind of find that with like pedophiles as well. At one point in their life they were a victim, and then they're perpetrating the same act again. It's sort of this.
They're not typically violent, but there are some that are. So I don't want to misrepresent, but they're typically not violent.
No, I don't mean pedophiles in terms of.
No,
violence.
I'm talking about people with mental illness.
Oh, okay.
I don't know about the pedophiles.
I just mean sort of
That's
like
a whole different.
It's like when you don't have that balance when you're young, if your world is thrown off balance, and then you're thrust into this crazy society that we live in with, because we're not just living in a world where you got to hunt down your food, chase it, cook it, and maintain a form of survival. We're well past that.
Right.
We're in complex social structures, where unnatural rules and regulations come into play. And so if you have someone that's sort of, they don't have that proper balance, right? Like that's sort of the purpose of childhood, is to adjust the brain to be able to expand beyond, the primal instincts. If you don't receive that balance to become a high functioning human being by the time you're 15, I think that's just a recipe for disaster. So,
well, and there isn't enough help for people with mental illness today.
Sure.
I mean, hospitals don't have enough beds. There's not enough psychiatrists. There's not enough psychologists. Waiting lists where people take some 6 weeks, 6 months. If you are in a serious depression and you're on a wait list to see somebody in 6 weeks, that's not good. I mean. That's when possibly the suicide actions can take place. But there's just a lack of services in general. and
affordable services
and
as well.
affordable.
I'd like to
Absolutely.
add, because some of these
Absolutely.
therapists and these psychiatrists, I mean, they're charging so much money that most people can't afford to go to them.
Right.
I see a lot of clients, you know, that are like students, like, you know, in med school, law school, whatever.
Right.
They come to me. They can't afford it. They don't have insurance right now. They can't afford to pay a lot of money.
That's right.
And so, you know, how are they going to get mental help? Help,
Yeah.
you know? And so I think that's another problem that we really have to focus on, affordable care. Because there is a lot of care, maybe. There's lots of therapists, there's lots of psychiatrists, but how many people can afford it?
That? It's true.
And the issue is if you know, early intervention is the answer. I mean, that clearly, if you can get people into treatment early, that's fine. That saves money. Because it stops the hospitalizations that have to happen. It stops all of the other things that go on down the road that can be very, very expensive. So if you can get people in, and I happen to believe that the young people, when we talk to them in the middle schools and high schools, just listening, they get it. I think that they're not as stigmatized as the older generations are around mental illness. They're willing to talk about it. They got groups that get together about this, campus groups. I mean, so there is some hope.
We find just through our advertising alone, the most interested parties was like 18 to 20, 25 or 29 or something like that, somewhere in that range. That's where the most people are searching for mental illness, depression, searching for solutions anyways.
See, there's so many hotlines, there's so many crisis centers available, right? And I'm just thinking at the point where the person is really like going through a very difficult time and they need to connect with someone right away. I think one solution, I'm always thinking of solutions. One solution would be that you can go to any psychiatrist, you can go to any therapist for free, because somebody else is going to reimburse that person if they want reimbursement, or maybe they would just do it pro bono. I don't know. But to be able to actually go and seek professional help to any person that you feel you want to go get professional help from, because we have a lot of professionals out there that are sitting with blank schedules, some of them. And so, I mean, why can't we provide that kind of help where the person who's really in pain, who's about to commit suicide, should be able to walk into any person's door, connect with them, tell them what's going on, and rather than calling some place where they can't see the person, they don't know who they're calling, they can't really make a connection with
you feel like you're being outsourced for your
right
for
exactly
your salvations.
Exactly. We can really come together as professionals, as healthcare providers, and do that.
I think that's a good
for
idea.
These very vulnerable people.
I think so.
Very vulnerable.
I think you'd get a lot out of it. You'd feel like your job is satisfying. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So,
no,
I don't know.
That
was just a thought I had.
Well, that's kind of an interesting thing. So, what are some other solutions? I like that. Let's problem solve. What are some other solutions that you think, and get creative with it, right? Like, what are ways?
What
that
can we do? Like, right now, right here.
Right. What are some ways?
I think a lot of we have something called connection support groups.
Okay.
And it's run by individuals who are in recovery themselves, so they're meeting with people. Those are helpful as an interim step for a lot of people. Number one, this illness has a tendency to isolate people. They become isolated. So if you can get them to a support group with people that they feel comfortable around, it at least gets them acclimated back into society, and they can talk. And they'll also get some good advice from people who are also struggling but doing okay.
Okay.
And so the more of those that you can have out there for people, because they're free. And so it's usually in their local communities. They can find them. We have 4 such connection groups that are out there. So all of the other NAMIs have them as well, and I'm sure there's other groups. But finding those sometimes is not so easy. And there's a difference between a person or a family member talking with an individual who is a family member or an individual than talking with a professional.
Okay.
There is a comfort level in knowing that these people get it. I have been there. I understand it. They get it. They understand it. and there's a comfort level for them knowing that.
You know, it's funny because we were doing a seminar last week. It was last week, right? It's so busy. It's crazy. Oh, yeah,
by the way,
let's hear.
Just to add, so I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the professionals, but you need both.
Yeah, okay.
You need to have them, and then the professionals are the ones that got to deal with the medications and the therapy and stuff.
Right.
But the other is to just get connected
with
people that are struggling with maybe some of the same things you are.
Well, that was because the friend that I mentioned that I dealt with, like, I think it was more than 15 years ago, maybe. When I was speaking to her over the phone, she had kind of talked to the help hotlines. She didn't want to talk to them. You know, she didn't. I think it was there's just
a lot of my clients don't really want to call. I'll be like, okay, if you need to call somebody in the middle of the night, you know, rather than just keep all this in your head, just call the hotline. Call like, you know, Common Ground or something. They always have all these hotlines, and they don't want to call them.
Yeah. One of the issues is that nobody likes to be judged.
Right.
None of us like to be judged, right?
Yeah.
If you have a mental illness, I can tell you that it's probably 100-fold.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They believe that they are being judged constantly.
Sure.
So calling a hotline
means that there's something that they can't control that. You know, they have to call.
And you don't see the person's, you know, responses, so it probably makes them feel very uncomfortable speaking with some random stranger, you know.
But it works for a lot of people. I mean, so, you know, if it works, fine. If it doesn't, try and find something else. I mean, the solutions aren't plentiful out there, unfortunately.
Well, here's my thing. I'm a big proponent of let's do more in the school system. I think schools should do a lot more than this. I think students that are, and I think there are a lot more students dealing with mental health issues, not necessarily a mental illness, but mental health issues, like, you know, the onset of like depression. I think dealing with these things at a young age, when you're in your early teens, you don't know how to process depression.
You know,
and you're told it's like you're just being a kid. Get over it.
Yeah, what they're doing now is they're cutting, self-mutilating.
You get a lot of that stuff.
So we've got all those, you know, symptoms that are so obvious.
Right. And as much as we want to call it just being over dramatic, there's still something to it.
Couple of observations. We just got called, or not just got called, just in the school semester, Northville High School. By their student congress, not by the school.
Okay.
But by the student congress called NAMI in and says, will you come in and provide information tables and so on for our groups? And we had like 4 or 5 different events that went on during the course of the year.
Sure.
That was put on by the students. So to answer your question, students are aware, and they know that they've got a lot of people, and there's suicides that go on in the schools. So that's one school. Right now, Livonia school system, we have something coming up on October the 2nd, which is called Crush the Stigma.
Okay.
Interesting event. That one is being put on by the school. And, excuse me, they're going to have some cars out in front of the school, Churchill High School. And kids they're going to be a program going on during the day where they have people presenting from suicide prevention and so on. And in the cars, the kids are going to write on the cars things that they would like to crush. Emotions that they would like.
So they actually get to experience.
So they're going to have all these cars written on, and then they're going to have the crusher there, and they're going to crush them from.
I want to go to that. Looks kind of.
I know, that's fun.
I used to go to the big monster truck shows.
but it's an expression, you know, to let people know that, you know, you're not alone.
Yeah, no, that's good, and it seals sort
of. We need more
imprints.
We need more events like this.
Yeah. It's creative. It sticks in your brain.
Right.
You can remember. That's a high emotional impact, a very big visual impact that will help you remember that experience. No, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
You know, it's like that. What's that saying? I think it was Confucius that said, I hear, I forget. I see, I remember. I do, and I understand.
Right.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. So, like, just actually experiencing it is like you actually understand.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
So it's more of, I think we need to get more of these experiential and also things that children can relate to. I mean, sometimes do they really relate to like an adult standing up there lecturing to them?
No,
probably not.
I don't know. I think they tune it out. It doesn't work. Right? It's got to be like more, you know, peer connected, you know, something where they can relate to it.
Yeah.
We need to become really creative in order to be able to draw these kids in and to have a lasting impact.
Because no matter how much you tell a kid, you know, I've been there, I know what you're going through. Like, get out of here. You don't know.
Yeah, if that were a solution, we'd solve all our
problems.
just
Exactly.
Like that, right?
Peer experiences are the best.
Oh yeah,
no question.
Well, it's like when a kid's watching a TV program, it's like you can have an adult speaking. It's harder to reach them, but you put a little baby on there, like I get it, A B C D, that makes sense.
Like I'll have like families come in sometimes, and I'll say something to the teen or whatever.
Yeah.
And the teen will be very receptive, right? They're open, and the parents will be I told them the same thing. They didn't listen.
Yeah.
And I said, it's because they see the parents through all kinds of emotions.
Yeah.
They get to a point where
and
they're
that
like,
does
I'm
not
not
go
trusting,
away.
I'm not trusting that parent.
Yeah.
They've seen the parent get angry. They've seen the parent lose it.
Right.
So
right.
they know.
Yeah.
They know it's like, I don't know if what they're saying is necessarily true.
Yeah.
And the reason they take it out on the parents, they always do.
Yeah.
It's because parents have unconditional love for their kids.
Yes.
And they know that.
Uh-huh.
Instinctively, they know that.
Yeah.
So they can get angry with them. They can do anything they want. And they may not do it with anybody else.
Okay.
But with their parents, especially mothers.
Yeah. Mothers get the brunt of
They do unfortunately take a lot of the brunt of what's going on. But it's just lashing out because they got to.
Yeah. And there's another side to this too. I think that there's a bit of tough love that also needs to be implemented in these circumstances.
I don't agree.
No? Okay.
No.
Okay. Let's
I think tough love with substance abuse is an issue, yes. I think with mental health, it's the need for support.
Okay.
Because tough love will... the result is not good with tough love with mental illness.
Yeah.
And it's a different experience. I mean, you have to understand, I've talked about anosognosia before, which means that an individual has the illness, but they don't believe that they're ill, so therefore why should I get treatment? So if you have somebody that has that kind of a mindset, providing tough love is probably going to be a bigger issue and cause more problems than the other. For them to know that you're there when they need you, because you're not going to give them help until they understand that they need help.
Yeah.
So they need to know that you're there to help them get that help when they need it.
So I guess let me ask about we'll take like adolescents, people that are like in their teens or even younger. If you don't know they have a mental illness, let's just say they're just kind of going through again those wavy emotions. I guess do you think that they need is there perhaps a lack of discipline that gap can be filled in to help deal with some of these emotions? Do you think that takes part?
Not sure. I think the problem with a lot of it is somebody early on has a mental illness, the parents are probably in denial.
Sure.
Because it's just, they're just going through a phase.
Yeah.
They don't know what they want to do yet.
Sure.
When in fact it could be something more serious than that. And it takes the parents a long time sometimes to figure out that this is something a lot more serious than that.
Okay.
And so I don't know that the discipline part of that is the answer. But at some point, I've always told parents, I says, there are petitions for getting people hospitalized and so on. I said, nobody can tell you when to do that. It's the hardest decision you'll ever have to make. Only you know when it's time to do that.
Yeah.
And it is tough. I mean, it's a very, very difficult thing to do because you got somebody who doesn't understand necessarily that they're ill.
Yeah.
And you're telling them that they're ill and that they need to get treatment, and they don't want to get treatment.
And what's worse is if the parent is ill too and is in denial about it.
Yeah.
There's no way they can see that their child is also ill.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, I think that's a big problem.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if it's an illness, that's something that's a bit beyond their control, anyways, right?
So Xavier Amador, who is the writer of "I'm Not Sick, I Don't Need Help,"
He'll be coming on our show next month.
Good, he will be.
Yeah.
Excellent.
We reached out.
Very
Yeah.
good. He said something that's remarkable, and it's never left me. And he says the problem with most parents is that they try and use logic with someone who is illogical.
Sure.
And so, stop talking.
Okay.
Because if you're trying to talk to somebody who's illogical, it's not going to do anything for you. So save your breath and just back away until there's a time where maybe some logic can come in and you can have a conversation. But it's not natural for a parent. I mean, a parent wants to get into the issue, get it resolved.
Lecture. Children hate lecturing.
Yeah.
And so it's really something. I'm pleased to hear that you're going to have Amador on. That's great.
Oh yeah. He was a pleasure to talk to. He's so easygoing.
He's a good guy.
Yeah. No, we're excited.
I just have you come towards this.
Oh, am I? I'm like out of focus. It's such a nice lens. I'm leaning back too much. Thanks for keeping joining that. So yeah, no, we look forward to definitely having him on. It'll be a good talk.
Remarkable.
Yeah, because a huge fascination, for me is this phenomenon of mass shootings.
Oh yeah.
And he's an expert in the field. So
he's written an amazing book. Yeah.
Several. Yeah.
I mean, when I went to his seminar, when I heard him speak, I bought that book, and it's really
It's very helpful for family members if you can get them to read it to understand that maybe they're part of the problem in trying to get them help.
Sure.
And they don't understand that.
So what do you say? I mean, so there are, we were talking a couple of days ago. There are some parents that, they do a little too much. They helicopter around their kid, and they try to force them into a position of, you have to do this to get better, and they sort of, reject that. There's also the case where parents, there are some that are just sort of disconnected. They're not quite tied to their kid's life, and they don't see some of these things coming.
Right.
What do you think about that? I mean, what would you suggest to a parent that's quite busy? They're sort of wrapped up in their world and their life, just trying to themselves deal with their own emotions. How do they begin to even know that they're disconnected from their kids?
Get education. They've got to get education, and that's what Families in Action does for parents. It helps them get the education they need to know that maybe they've been doing a lot of things wrong, and there's a different way that they can approach the situation and approach helping their loved one. Let there be no mistake. Everybody's end goal is exactly the same. They just want their child to be well.
Yeah.
The issue is that everybody approaches it differently.
Sure.
This illness causes a lot of divorces.
Yeah.
And it isn't because the husband and the wife don't want the person well, but their approach to solving that problem could be entirely different.
Okay.
And they never get to the point with figuring out, okay, hey, we need to spend some time figuring out what it is and how we're going to go about doing it.
Yeah.
I think they get into that blame game.
They do. And so there's education that they got to get. They've got to learn. They got to learn they're not alone, and they got to learn there's nothing wrong. This is an illness.
Yeah.
If it was cancer, if it was any other kind of illness, you'd get together and you'd kind of figure out what it is. The difference with this one is because it affects the brain. You're dealing with somebody who's illogical. They may be hallucinating. They could be psychotic. There could be all kinds of things that are going on that is going to cut absolute communications off.
So, Leon, if there's a family out there watching and they're undergoing some challenges here with their children or maybe even with themselves, how would they know, or what could they do today, right now, to reach out to Families in Action and get right on this?
So they could get on to the in our case, our website, which is NAMIMetro.org.
Okay.
And there is a section on there that has a brochure for Families in Action.
Okay.
And they can actually register online. The one that happens that we do in Southfield, we've been doing for a long time, starts September the 11th.
Okay.
It meets every Wednesday, from 7 to 9 p.m. at Ascension St. John Providence Southfield. And then on September 12th, we have one that meets in Clinton Township. Okay. So they meet on Thursday nights, we meet on Wednesday nights, and we do it in the spring and we do it in the fall. The fall one is coming up soon.
So
and we already have
confidential?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Everything in NAMI is confidential. Support groups as well. And we're limited in size. We can only take about 25 in the class.
Okay.
And so they fill up pretty quick. We do have some space left. I think we have 19 people signed up for Southfield already. Yeah. And we have about 8 signed up for Clinton Township. So if anybody's out there listening and is interested, get on our website and sign up.
Yeah, we'll post that stuff in the links below.
Good.
On the video. Yeah.
Very helpful, especially for parents that are struggling. The really good news about this, when we started this 20-some years ago, we started it because there was no place for us to go as a family.
Sure.
No education. So the problem is that the first ones that we had, it was family members who came who had loved ones who had been ill for 25, 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's pretty late by that point.
Yeah.
Now what we're getting family members that have a loved one who's maybe been ill for 6 months or a year.
Yeah.
So you got a real opportunity to help family members understand a different way to maybe be more helpful. The whole purpose and the goal of it is to help our loved ones be healthy, happy, and independent. That's the goal.
As soon as possible.
As soon as possible.
Yes.
Oh,
And you know
don't
why?
wait.
Because if you can get your loved one to be healthy, happy, and independent,
Sure.
you will be healthy and
Your
happy
life
and independent.
improves too. Yeah.
Absolutely, because this is a family illness. This affects siblings. It affects family members. I mean, it can be crushing for many families.
Yeah.
And it's that families in action. So you've got to take action. You can't just keep talking about it.
Right.
You know,
don't just wait for a professional to handle the
exactly.
issue. Yeah.
Just take responsibility. Just do it. It's worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, to get connected to some.
Right.
You know, just actually to expand what you think and what you know about it. That is key.
So, okay. All right. Here's my question. How do you inspire people to not just take action once it's too late, but to preemptively improve their mental health? You know, let's say before they reach a mental illness or before their mental illness, if they do have a mental illness, takes such a negative effect. How do we inspire people to take more introspective action, to be aware of themselves and to be aware of others? That's my question.
Well, obviously, education is a big key to that, but I'm not sure that you can preemptively do it because, I mean, so many family members will say, yeah, my son or daughter had a break in January.
Yeah.
And they'll say, but I should have known because I saw these signs 3 years ago, 4 years ago. There were things that we should have seen that we didn't see because we just thought it was normal activity for a kid that was growing up.
Growing pains.
They don't know what they really want to do. The grades are faltering. They're changing friends.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of things that we can relate family members to that says, these are kind of some warning signs to look out for. It doesn't necessarily mean, but it could mean that you better keep a close eye on things because they could go. Because once they're 18 years old, I'm telling you, the family member's ability to intervene is almost nil.
But I mean, and again, but before things reach a critical level, because it's, as we've seen, it's very possible for people with mental illness issues, not just even on the negative side of a mental health spectrum, but people with actual mental illness issues to live a good life.
Oh, absolutely.
So how do we inspire people? How do we inspire people suffering? Let's say you're alone out there, you're isolated, you don't, you feel like there's no one that you can talk to. I guess that's number one. How do we inspire those people to take action in their lives to improve their situation?
You're talking about the individuals themselves?
Yeah, that's the first question, I guess.
If they have insight
that
they've got an illness, number one, then they need to seek out help, whether that be NAMI or whether it be a psychologist, whether it be a therapist, wherever it is, they need to seek out help for themselves.
Okay.
And especially if they can seek out help with peers who have gone through what they're going through.
Okay.
The problem, like I said earlier, is so many of them don't have insight into the fact that they have an illness.
Okay.
And so if you can educate them earlier, one of the things we do when we go into the high schools is we talk to them about signs and symptoms.
Yeah.
We couch it in the fact that, you may have a roommate who exhibits these signs or these symptoms. You can help by getting them to a school counselor.
Yeah.
What we're also hoping is that they're hearing this and they're saying, well, maybe I might have some of these signs and symptoms and I should go to a counselor as well.
Yeah.
But it's easier to say it if it's somebody else.
Okay.
Because of the stigma that's been tattooed on this illness.
So the first step is bringing an awareness. A young level, obviously, is the greatest place to do it, but even in older levels, too. So what do you say to someone who's in their mid-40s that's sitting at home and they're dealing with these severe issues? How do you inspire those people to, find some resolution that's not suicide or extreme, whatever?
If they have an understanding that they have an illness is one thing. The other is that we have found typically, unless there is a change in their lifestyle, a dramatic change in their lifestyle, they don't necessarily go out and seek help.
Okay.
So if something changes dramatically, and there are also triggers.
Yeah.
Divorces, loss of somebody in their family. Those are things that can put them in a downward spiral to not want to get help.
Okay.
And to do things that they probably shouldn't be doing.
Okay.
And I love what you're speaking to, Leon. And then the other side of that, as I'm sitting here thinking about this, is I think that there are a lot of people, a lot of kids, who are growing up in broken homes or, just in really very unhealthy, dysfunctional situations. And I think to also present ways, like, what does it feel like to thrive? What does it feel like to survive? What's the distinction there? So, like, create new possibilities for children to kind of, step into the positive side of life. Not necessarily normal. You have to be normal. But to help them to become more neutral, so that they're able to get clarity in what is life really and what is it like. I know it sounds like a deep conversation, but I think children can understand that.
Oh yeah,
I think they sometimes understand it more than we give them credit for. But to really paint for them, a picture of how, or help them to paint a picture of their life, like a new narrative. Because we don't always have to focus on the negatives.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So that's just another side of it.
The when it's too late time.
I think it has to go hand in hand.
Sure.
Also teaching them the symptoms, like talking about if your friend feels like this, and then this is how life can be when you're thriving. Even for a child, I think they would be so receptive to hearing those messages.
You said normal. It's interesting, in one of our classes, families classes, the word was brought up as to what was normal. And this one gentleman raised his hand. He says, normal is a setting on a washing machine.
I like that.
Because there is no such thing as normal.
Actually, we're all normal, because if you and I were put in the same position as that other person in the same family doing the same thing, we might be much more dysfunctional than they are.
Personally,
so there's no such thing as really normal.
I like the extraordinary anyways. People that have been to the brink, they know what life is. They know what it's like to be tested and to gather the strength to pull themselves back. There's nothing wrong with having gone through extreme circumstances.
You need to look at, and we have posters of this when we go to health fairs and so on, as famous people with mental illness. I mean, is it the mental illness that's made them who they are? I mean, famous artists.
Sure.
We've had presidents.
Sure.
Astronauts.
Yes, I saw that poster. It's a really
presidents,
powerful
astronauts.
poster.
Churchill. There was all kinds of people that have a mental illness, and they have a different thought process, but their thought processes could be very good at a specific time. Maybe not all the time.
It's funny you bring that up, and this isn't necessarily on that level, because there are definitely people that have, they're savants, right? Like they're excellent in one area. Outside of that, they're in shambles. But I sometimes wonder if a lot of people that are slapped on with the label of having a mental illness are really just they need a different outlet for their skills and their ambitions. Are people who are sometimes too wrapped up in their anger, do they just have too much pent-up energy and they don't have the proper outlet or the proper goals to unleash that sort of side of themselves?
Their goals change. There's no question. I think most of the people that have a mental illness, their life was set and they knew what they wanted to do. They have a mental illness, and it completely changes what they were doing in many cases. And it just seems like it's common when I see what's going on. College kids who had clear path as to what they wanted to do, and then they get a mental illness, and all of a sudden their path is altogether different, and it can be very, very successful. And but it's taken them in a different direction.
It's interesting, Marquise, that you asked that question, because in my experience, there's some people that need that label. They like to know, diagnose me now. I want to know what I have: bipolar, I have this, I have schizophrenia, I have this. Okay, and there are other people where the label actually limits them.
Yeah.
So I think the people that really need that label to be categorized, it gives them a sense of control. Like, whew, now I know what's wrong with me. You know, it gives them that so they can contain that. But then there are other people where once you give the label, that's it. They're done for their life. They just sit back. They're like, "This is what I have. I can't."
That's just who it adds on to the identity.
The identity, exactly. And then they're not able to move forward.
Right.
So I think it's really important to be sensitive to that.
Yeah.
Because you have
That's
to
a good
see if
point,
the person is going to already be labeling themselves with that diagnosis, right? Versus,
My son says it doesn't matter what you call it.
Yeah.
He says as long as there's something to treat it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
That's what's important.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you call it.
Okay.
Not important. And he's been well for years.
Sure.
Under treatment.
Yeah.
What a blessing.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
And it's a lot of people like that. So a lot of the purpose of NAMI is to keep hope alive.
Sure.
For family members, to let them know that there are lots of people
Yeah.
who have a mental illness that are doing very, very well in life.
Yeah.
And
That's the other side you don't hear about.
It's not the kiss of death.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a brand that you're going to be carrying all your life, although the stigma seems to carry it on for the rest of your life.
Sure.
But people do very, very well.
Yeah.
Now I have like clients that are physicians, maybe with bipolar or whatever, and they are so ashamed of their illness. There's a lot of shame there.
Yeah.
And I just wonder how much that shame is, like their whole identity changes.
Yeah.
And so that's just one more identity on
soaking
top
it
of
in.
the all the other identities they have.
Right.
About themselves,
I kind of wonder you see this debate in alcoholism a lot. Some people consider alcoholism to be a disease. And some people say, well, no, it's just a developed habit.
I think the CDC calls it a mental illness.
Yeah. Well, I've seen but there's no real, there's no concrete evidence to say that it absolutely is one or the other, right? So it's just sort of, it's an interesting.
Well, if you meet that criteria, like in the DSM-5, then that's what you're diagnosed with.
Yeah.
But
right?
even with
there is a lens through which you're viewed in order to be given that diagnosis.
But if we call it a disease, and again, I'm looking at it from both sides.
Yeah.
We can call it a disease and then label someone, you have the disease of alcoholism.
Right.
But there's no actual proof, unless I'm wrong. Is there actual proof that says that this is a genetic disease?
Oh, I think so.
Really? I thought it was not proven. I thought that there's some evidence that might point towards.
Well,
but
maybe that was more so.
And so I wonder about, because like you said, there are people where because when you hear the word disease,
right, it's all symptomology.
Yes,
not causation.
If I hear the word disease, I'm like, I'm gonna die in 2 years. That's one way of looking at it.
But disease has a cause, right?
It does. It does. Yeah.
There's a causation.
Yeah.
Well, and that's one of the issues with anybody with a mental illness. I mean, like, when you get into like 80% of people who have bipolar disorder probably also have a substance abuse issue. So there's a dual diagnosis that goes on because they're self-medicating. Many of them, they either don't want to feel anything or it makes them feel good, at least for a short period of time.
Yeah.
Alcohol is the same way. And either of those things negate any benefits of the medication they're taking. So you don't want them to do either.
Yeah.
But tell that to a 21-year-old who's
what I find, Leon, which is so interesting, is people have a hard time feeling good than feeling bad. They have a more difficult time feeling good. Yeah. And it's so interesting because once they do start to feel good, their vulnerability index goes up.
They don't want to lose it.
And they feel more and more vulnerable.
And
then they self-sabotage.
Yeah.
When they can't tolerate that vulnerability anymore, then they self-sabotage.
Is that a symptom of the way we live?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
It's a good question.
But the thing is, I think they feel unsafe.
Sure.
Because it's like, when is the other shoe gonna
go?
When is the other shoe gonna fall?
everybody's judging me.
Everybody's judging, right.
No matter what I do or what I say.
Yeah.
So therefore,
because feeling feeling bad is at the
They
bottom,
can't-
roughly
yeah.
speaking. So
Yeah.
you can't, you're not going to
Right.
fall.
And they feel in control there.
Sure,
because
exactly.
they know that they can
Yeah.
always bring themselves up somehow.
Yeah.
So they feel like a little bit of, empowerment when they can feel
Yeah.
bad. So
Yeah.
I think another thing that we really have to focus on is how to get through the self-sabotaging behavior.
Yeah.
Because most people, we think that, people want to feel good, but you get them feeling good and then they self-sabotage.
Yep.
It's like the elephant that throws the dirt on itself once it's bathed,
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
What's up?
Oh, when you're animated like that, it goes in front of that camera.
Oh, does it?
Yeah. Just so you know.
No, I appreciate it. I was thinking about it. All right. But no, that's there's so many questions I have about that kind of stuff. But a huge area of interest for me is the human identity. I think that is a relatively unexplored area in terms of like dealing with these illnesses that we have. How much does it play into these illnesses? How much does it play into the things that we call diseases? How much would it change if we were to understand ourselves a little more? If we were to understand our need to identify with various issues, and then that might cause us to self-medicate and so on and so forth. I wonder how much the human identity plays into, these levels of depression that we have, the ease of which we're willing to commit suicide and so on. Because I wonder how, we were talking to you a couple weeks ago, you were telling us a story about a 5-year-old that committed suicide.
Oh, yeah.
You just wonder
It's hard to believe that it could even be possible.
I know. I still,
Yeah.
I keep thinking
Yeah.
about that conversation.
5 years.
It's younger and younger. And they're diagnosing kids younger and younger now. And I don't know if it's because they've always were there and never diagnosed, or else I just don't know. Or is it situation
know how to even do that? I mean,
Yeah.
right?
I want to know the answer to that. I want to figure out.
Yeah.
I want to figure out. Is the sort of curve of our society pushing kids more in that direction?
I don't know. If I knew the answer to that, I'd be sitting in Hawaii on the beach.
Yeah, I mean, really, because it's like, were kids doing this 200 years ago? Is it because of the comforts that we have that we're not forced to kind of go out and deal with issues in a different manner? Because think about it, 1,000 years ago, our biggest concern was getting eaten. Really, now it's like, well, social media,
That's a pretty big concern.
It is, but it's a legitimate concern.
Yeah.
But now, the brain kicks in fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
Right.
And so the body doesn't know how to tell the difference between a tiger chasing it versus some asshole on Facebook, threatening us. It's all the same to the body. And so now we have this complication of the brain trying to, work
Maneuver,
in.
yeah.
Exactly. Because I may be very warm and comfortable in my bed at nighttime, but my body's like, dude, get up and go. Run. Don't stop. Find some safety. And that plays a lot into the human condition.
Right.
We didn't have to worry about what the tiger thought about us.
Right.
Exactly.
And what the tiger's family's thinking about us.
Exactly.
We just knew he was a bully.
Exactly. Kill the thing, right?
Yes.
And so we're dealing with a lot of this. And I think when we start throwing in people that don't have, at least at the very least, we're not even talking about mental illness at this point.
Right.
We're talking about people that at the very least don't have the proper development at the right stages to understand. You get your meat in a market. It's a slab of meat. Right. Don't go into primal safety mode. Because that's when you can get into these people. I think they get so wrapped up in these forms of paranoia where they either turn to extreme violence, or maybe it internalizes. And it can then maybe turn into a mental illness, and it turns into extreme forms of depression, or it turns into, schizophrenia, or whatever the case may be. But I kind of wonder about that. How?
Yeah,
much
like
of
you don't
that-
know which came first, the chicken or
Exactly,
the egg. Was it the
exactly.
chemical imbalance first,
Yeah.
or was it the all the stress and
Exactly,
everything, the way we're
exactly.
processing our world that created the chemical
Because
imbalance, right?
if the second largest form of death amongst 10 to 22-year-olds
suicide.
is suicide.
Right.
I am just pressed to believe
Yeah.
there's a lot more going on with our society than necessarily up here. And I think in that case, but again, I could be wrong, but I want to know.
Young people are exposed to so much more
Exactly.
than history
Exactly.
has exposed
Exactly.
them to.
Yeah.
Well, there is something called information overload.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
when you give somebody too much information,
Sure.
right? A child, let's say, who's not able to process it. It's just like food. If
Sure.
you keep eating a lot of food,
Sure.
your body has to have time to digest it,
Yeah.
process it. But now, like, children are so, like, information overload that they're losing interest.
Yeah.
I know these days, like 15-year-olds don't really care to drive that much.
Yeah.
A lot of them, I don't know,
Okay.
maybe there may be some that are really excited about it, but they don't really care to drive that much because why should they? They can socialize with their friends online.
Yeah.
And media glamorizes suicide.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
media
I mean, so
glamorizes
You're right.
it,
when
yes.
young people's brains have not developed enough to understand the difference
Sure.
between some
Yeah.
of this.
Sure.
So therefore, it just compiles on itself, and people don't know how to handle it.
So there's that intellectual overdevelopment. There's not a whole balanced system.
And with that too, it seems to be there's a massive disconnect, right? You have all of this information coming in. Am I blind? Oh, I am. You have it connects the two cameras. There we go. You have all of this information coming in to the early development stage, but there's no connection to the reality of it.
Right.
There's
Exactly.
no there's no okay. Well, I have all this access to pornography, which has got to be really impossible to stop a kid at these days, or really tough to. You have all this access to that, but they don't even know what an erection is. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that with all the violence that you see on TV. All of these concepts, all this information that we're able to learn and understand,
way beyond their
there's no
ability
connection
to
to
process
what
it,
does
yeah.
this really mean, and how. I know that I'm connected to it somehow, but I don't know how to process all of this just yet.
Yes.
So it's a very interesting thing.
So it's that unresolved stuff inside of you, that probably just weighs you down.
And then
right?
parents don't know how to deal with that half the time.
True.
I mean, how as a parent, you didn't grow up in a time like that. You're like, just get outside, play with some sticks. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, we just used to just pick stones on the street or
Which
whatever.
I think is still a good idea. Playing with sticks is a fun thing. Get dirty.
It was very, very creative.
Yeah,
We would get
yeah.
very creative.
Right,
because we
right.
didn't have all those toys.
Exactly. But that stuff's not going away too. So where's the solution for that? Where's the grounds for grasping a hold of this fast evolving world?
Technology is moving way too fast for us to be able to stop it.
Yeah, it is. We won't be able to stop it.
No.
You're right.
No, it's here to stay,
Yeah.
and it's only moving forward.
But how
So
do
maybe-
we adjust with
Maybe
that?
better parenting, trying to figure out, limiting people and knowing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that's not easy to do because the technology now, you don't have to do it at home.
Yeah.
You got technology available no matter where you're at.
Exactly.
You go into a restaurant, you see these families
Yeah.
sitting there. Each
Yeah.
is on their own device. Nobody's talking to anybody
yeah.
else.
Right.
Nobody's looking at anybody else.
And before long, this will be all implanted. I guarantee
So how do
we'll
you,
have implants.
the issue, I think, the only issue is how do you get to the chemical imbalance and prevent that from going haywire?
Yeah.
So regardless of the technology and all the other things, if
Sure.
you can figure out some way to do that. And hopefully researchers are working at trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
I mean, probably not in my lifetime, but maybe the next lifetime, my grandkids will be in a place where they've got some way of figuring out the answer to that.
Yeah.
The way I feel is whenever I'm really confused about something
Sure.
or I'm overwhelmed or there's, I don't know, just going back to the basics.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, just really going inward, really trusting. I mean, always simplifying the life and try it out.
Yeah. No.
See what happens.
Yeah.
Maybe you're just overwhelmed with all your stuff and all the, the stressors of life, Just go back to the basics, see what happens. Go back within you. Don't always have a device there. Don't always be looking up information.
Right.
It's like experimentation with yourself.
Yeah.
Because it just depends on how far you've come away from yourself.
Right.
And you're going to have to now find your way back to the basics.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good.
Because I think this right here, these are like miracles right here.
Yeah.
This is machinery.
It's still the grandest machine on earth.
Right, ever.
Yeah.
We haven't even begun to touch the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
And so just being able to go back to basics.
Yeah.
Sit down at dinner with your family.
Yeah.
You know, eat healthy food right from the farm.
Yeah.
You know where your food is coming from.
Yeah.
I mean, be nice to each other.
Yeah.
See if that helps.
Might help. Yeah.
Step one, don't be an
let's
asshole.
support each other. Let's see if that can help.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm not saying that's a solution, but I think
Well,
if we say, well, where can we
part,
start?
Yeah.
I would say, let's go back to the basics first. And then from there, maybe we can figure it out.
Yeah, I think we'll wrap it up pretty soon here, but I think that the future field, the future explosion of of growth in terms of careers and so on. I think it's an introspective field. It's people teaching others and helping others how to go back inside. Because again, if you think about how technology developed, for the vast majority of the human experience, it's been very slow development. Trains didn't really, they revolutionized, how we traveled and maybe connected with other cultures, but it didn't revolutionize how we necessarily thought about things. But then you had this explosion of information that came really only 100 years ago.
Right.
And then now we're playing massive catch up. So I think that's the big field now is for people to teach and educate and to explore introspective education. I think that's huge.
And to use the media, it's a beautiful resource, a beautiful tool.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We don't have to keep memorizing anymore because it's right in the palm of our hand, literally.
Yeah.
Right? Everything is there. We don't have to, if somebody asks you something, you don't have to feel stupid. You can just say, let me Google it here.
Exactly. Hold on, teacher. I got that math question for you.
Right? I mean, the fact that they're getting away, they're not even teaching cursive anymore.
Yeah.
Schools.
That's a damn shame.
Yeah, that's a shame. It's so much fun to write in cursive. But just like using these as resources, don't over-identify with this stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree.
My biggest issue is they don't teach slide rules anymore.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to use a slide rule.
Oh,
Bring those back, along with cursive.
Back to the basics.
They got rid of cursive.
I'm actually glad they got rid of slide rules.
But in some ways we are going to basics because have you noticed the latest trend? Adults are now buying coloring books and coloring.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Stress
it's really
relievers.
it's a
stress
real
reliever.
popular thing.
Yeah.
I think
you're
adults
going
should do a
back
little more of that. Go to the damn zoo without your kids. You know what I'm saying? Go have some fun. Pick up a video game or something. I don't know. Go play around. Enjoy that
be
part.
a kid again. We're always trying to live through our children instead of we're pushing that side away from us that is there all the time. We just have to acknowledge it. Be a kid again.
Yes.
You don't have to just live through your kids. Be a kid yourself.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
And
That's
let's use technology. Let's not let technology
use us.
I
I love that.
Good quote.
Yeah,
Good quote.
that deserves a bell.
Well, on that note, Leon, thanks for coming out, my friend.
Thank you so much,
good.
Leon. We really appreciate it.
Do you have?
It's
Are there any
wonderful.
shout outs or anything? Places that you want people to go for information that we can leave them with?
Well, just go to NAMIMetro.org if you're in Oakland, Wayne, and Macomb County.
Okay.
You can always go to NAMI for NAMIMichigan.org for if you're in another county somewhere and you want to find out where your local affiliate is.
Okay.
Go to NAMI and you can get directed to an affiliate in your county. So it's a good place to start for getting information, especially family members who are struggling.
Okay.
Or individuals who are trying to figure out, is there any groups around that they could get connected with? Because, again, isolation is a big issue.
Okay.
And so if we can get them out and get them connected, it's a good way to get them into recovery.
Awesome.
And we talk about it as recovery.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is. You never know if it's going to come back or not. But we know lots and lots of people. I got people on our board who are in recovery. And they work constantly. They'll tell you they wake up every day with mental illness, and they've got to work through it every single day, no matter how well they are and how well they're doing. It's something that's with them forever until we can find a cure.
It's time to increase understanding on on everybody's
Absolutely.
end.
And get the media to get it right.
Sure. Well, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
That's definitely that's our whole focus is to put more emphasis on that. We make, like the TV show Mental Health Unplugged, coming to you soon by Easy Awakenings. But yeah. So I want to say, anytime you want to come out, you are more than welcome to.
Okay.
Anyone else in your organization, you guys want to, produce a little something on our show, we'll help you out in any way that we can. So
there's
Easy
a NAMI
Awakening
walk.
Supports,
There is a NAMI walk coming up September 28th at Belle Isle.
September 20th, Belle Isle.
And so we usually get a couple thousand people out walking, so it's to raise awareness and funds, but you just need to register to walk.
Okay.
And you sign up for a NAMI Metro team. You get a Stigma Stinks t-shirt.
Nice.
With a skunk on it.
September 28th?
Saturday, September 28th.
I like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With a skunk on it,
with
too,
a skunk,
huh?
yeah. We even have a mascot.
We're going to have to go.
Outfit.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think I should have a vacation plan. We'll figure that out. Actually, I do want to do that. We'll figure that out. But all right, awesome. Again, thank you so much for coming out.
Me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Leon.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you guys soon. Take it easy.